Hello, and welcome to this webinar, How Fiber-Based Packaging Can Minimize Waste While Preserving Plastic Benefits. This event is brought to you by Prepared Foods and is sponsored by Aptar Food Protection. I'm your moderator, Bob Garrison, the Chief Editor at Prepared Foods. Thanks for joining us. Today's presenters are Michael Johnston, the Director of Food Protection R&D at Aptar Food Protection, and Patrick Innes, Halopack Technical Product Manager. With a master's degree in food science and technology from the University of Georgia, Michael specializes in developing advanced packaging systems that enhance food safety and extend shelf life. His expertise includes designing solutions to address preservation challenges and to improve product quality. Michael has authored several publications and is recognized for his contributions to both the food science field and the packaging industry. A graduate of James Madison University, Patrick also has extensive experience in the food packaging industry. Prior to joining Aptar, he held positions with ProSeal America, OnePack, and Empirical Packaging Solutions. Most recently, he was an executive partner at Halopack Americas. Don't forget to submit your questions, and later on in our today's program, both presenters will address as many as possible. Today's event is being recorded and archived at preparedfoods.com. And with that, I'm excited to turn it over to today's first presenter, Michael.
Thanks, Bob. It's great to be here today. Again, we're just going to go over how fiber-based packaging can help replace plastics, but minimize plastics at the same time, and we still get those plastic benefits. Again, today's agenda, we have an introduction from Aptar done by me, and then I'm going to hand it over to Patrick, and he's going to talk about methods to improve sustainability, as well as not all plastic is bad plastic. We know there's a lot of different types of plastic and recycling methods, and then that will move over into a discussion on recyclability versus compostability versus biodegradable, because those are very commonly misconstrued and confused terms. Then we'll get on to a sustainability check. We'll talk about different sustainabilities of different plastics, and we'll introduce you to Aptar Halopack. And then after that, we'll have a special guest talk about some case studies. Those are always fun and exciting. I love those myself personally. And then we'll get on to Q&A, where we can field your questions, and we're happy to talk about all the different questions you have today. So again, Aptar's history. Aptar was actually started in the 1940s. We had some entrepreneurial companies that started up in the 1940s in US, France, and Germany. And what happened is, through the years, onto the 1960s, the Pitway Corporation actually acquired these legacy businesses. They were all in a similar category, again, dealing with plastics, fitments, containers, and they grew together in one company. And then finally, they got it together in the 1990s and actually formed a public company on the stock market. And that's where the global expansion happened, and Aptar became our name, French for breathe. And it became a public company. Move on to today. We actually have $3.5 billion in revenue with 13,000 employees, and we're in 20 different countries. And again, the main Aptar's history is really that starting entrepreneurial spirit and a culture of innovation throughout. And you'll see a lot of that in the next couple of slides, as well as evolving and growing our geographical presence. And we'll talk about that, as well as our specific division, Aptar Food Protection. So again, about the broad product portfolio of Aptar, we are in a lot of different sectors, anything from pharma. So you have injectables. We actually help with material science for those injectable tops. You'll have nasal sprays. If you're familiar with the most recent naloxone nasal spray, that is actually Aptar's technology in there, giving a metered dose spray for overdose patients, which is very critical. And then we're also in powdered and aerosolized inhalation devices for a lot of pharmaceuticals. We also have a digital healthcare device corporation that actually helps with user experience for that as well, that we just acquired. And moving over to beauty and also home and consumables market, we are in a lot of the spray pumps for perfumes and aerosolizers. We're also in cosmetics for a lot of those custom-made packaging, making it look like metal or some sort of that, and also a very good airless dispenser and a lot of other devices you'll see there. And that kind of feeds into our food and beverage. So we have the very famous upside down fitment on the Heinz ketchup and now the Daisy and Chick-fil-A sauce. I love that stuff. And then also on our dispensing for liquids, you'll see our very famous same dispenser as the Heinz is in the Mio container, as well as some other classic plastic fitments we have in there. And then we get on to Aptar food protection, which is more in the active material science packaging. And so you have a lot of active materials there, absorbing moisture or absorbing fluids or absorbing gases. We can also emit those. Our patented InvisiShield is one of those, emitting an antimicrobial. And we have a lot of other devices we absorb moisture for within the products and food packaging, and therefore food protection. So a lot of awards that the global Aptar has achieved, anything from the Barron's Award, if you're familiar with that, it's sustainability. So of course, that's what we're talking about today. You can go over and go to Newsweek's top 100 companies there, and then you'll move into like Capital France. Again, we're international. We can get some international awards there too, that we just got in 2023. Again, more about Aptar CSP Technologies, which is the Aptar Food Protection Division. We joined the Aptar Group in 2018, and we're premier active science, like I was discussing earlier, active packaging solutions, food protection. That's really our core. We're headquartered in Auburn, Alabama, and we have 500 dedicated employees in 4 different countries. So US, France, China, and I can't think of the other 2 off the top of my head. Go figure. But yeah, we make 1.2 billion components manufactured annually, and we have 5 locations worldwide. And we actually have 600 worldwide patents, more patents than people employed here. And of course, with those, we have to make strict quality certifications for our pharma and beverage. So we're under ISO 9001, ISO 13485, and ISO 14001 certified. So next, I will hand it over to Patrick, who's going to gladly talk to you about sustainability and food packaging.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. Pleasure to be here. As Michael mentioned, my name is Patrick Innes, the Technical Product Manager for Halopack product within Aptar. So what I wanted to talk about, highlighting packaging to start with, and then we'll kind of highlight the different types of packaging, sustainable designs, and where the future lies with fiber-based packaging replacing plastics. So the goal of packaging, as we see it, is to move product from A to B while ensuring product remains protected, intact, and appealing to customer. So as we look at the goal of the packaging and introducing new packaging concepts and formats, we want to ensure that we don't degrade the product in its current packaging, and that we're only adding additional value, whether it be marketing, sustainable, food safety, etc. So we have seen products from rigid lids to containers and top seal, things moved into more sustainable designs, and then combining all of these aspects and moving into products, as you see there, like Halopack, which is a paper and plastic-based solution, but reducing the amount of plastic by 90%. So before we get into specific types of actual packaging, wanting to understand the broad types of sustainable categories that packaging falls into. So a lot of products that you're familiar with are recyclable. Think of your papers, your cardboards, your glasses, etc. We'll then talk about compostable products. So your food scraps, your yard waste, these are things that do not leave a residue once composted. And then we'll also touch on biodegradable items. So these decompose naturally over time, but can leave a residue once fully decomposed. So all of these have considerations to take into fact when looking to implement, but we'll go into detail to highlight the pros and cons of each. So as we touch on, recyclable products can be collected, processed, and transformed into new products. So very familiar with this type of recyclability stream. We see a lot of benefits on reusing products, energy savings, waste reduction, right? So incorporating properly recycled products, we do see this in our day-to-day lives, specifically in paper and corrugated, but also in plastics, glasses, etc. Some of the challenges that we see with recycling, contamination being one. So familiar with cardboard pizza boxes that have contamination on that. A lot of times in sorting, we can't have food contaminants within that product. There has to be rinsed off. So there are issues with the actual virgin fiber being contaminated with a food product. Also the market demand, what does the consumer want? What is the use for that product? And then the infrastructure. We've used a lot of global-based packaging and see that the locality in which we are in plays a big factor. So as infrastructure seems to be catching up to the demands of the market, ensuring that the consumer takes on the responsibility of putting it in the right bin, but then we also have the commercial infrastructure to handle various types of packaging to be recycled. So then touching on compostable products, right? So these are things that break down naturally. It would add back into the soil enrichment. It would reduce the waste reduction, and it's a closed loop system. So there are a lot of benefits to compostable product. A lot of the challenges that we've seen can be specific conditions required to allow that product to compost. Do you have the ability at your home to do this? Or is this more an industrial aspect? So we see the same challenges really across the board in terms of infrastructure on an industrial scale, as well as the labeling and the approval of home systems. Ensuring that when someone goes to compost a product, that there is no residue left behind. So as we work through what is in these products, identifying the label correctly, and then also identifying the infrastructure to be able to compost, these are still challenges that we find. Last topic that we'll talk about is biodegradable products. So these are things that decompose naturally. There's a lower environmental impact. There's some flexibility. The challenges that we see, typically think of your biodegradable plastics. So your PLAs, they're very different types of plastics combining petroleum-based and plant-based substrates to combine a product. Useful, and think of your paper-based cups that have a PLA lining to prevent water from egressing into the paper. There is a use for them. Understanding how biodegradable, right? Understanding the clarity of the product, and then understanding how it is degraded. What environmental conditions are needed to take place, and if those aren't met, what then happens to this product? So as we see here, nothing is a unicorn, nothing is a white elephant, but what we are looking to identify is those products in the marketplace and utilizing the benefits for what it is, and ensuring that there is no degradation to the product in terms of food waste and shelf life. So as we mentioned, each of these products have their own challenges, but there are things that are being done in each of these respective categories to push the needle, and we'll kind of talk into where these products have pushed the industry trends in terms of packaging. So understanding what is a recyclable product, compostable product, biodegradable product, giving you a very high level overview. now really wanting to understand the types of packaging and the sustainable trends that we've moved into. So a lot of consumers, if you go to your grocery store, you'll be familiar with a rigid lid or a clamshell, which is a hinged lid, so a solid sheet of plastic. A lot of consumers in the US and globally, for that matter, are moving into a top sealed format. So in looking at this image on the screen, those boxes are what would be the equivalent to rigid lids. So separate rigid lids that you would snap onto your deli containers. The equivalent of that in a top seal film, you'll see there is a 10-inch roll of diameter film. So moving away from just the top lid, not even talking about the base tray, you can reduce your plastic consumption immensely. Overall, 30% plastic footprint reduction in moving that. You then also will have a goods in savings. So your clamshells, your rigid lids, they require 2 spaces to hold the lid and the base. Moving to a top seal punnet, you are basically stacking just that base in the box. So you can get up to 65% rigid goods footprint reduced. So as you're looking at these products in, moving packaging formats, you don't have to move to the nth degree. There are steps that you can take to become more sustainable. So from a rigid lid to a clamshell to a top seal format, you can immediately see these types of benefits. So as we look at that, what does that look like in terms of actual weight and cost savings? So on average, moving from a rigid lid to film, you're going to have an 89% weight reduction and over 156 tons of plastic can be saved. This is based on sealing roughly 1 million trays annually, running on a standard top seal line. So again, the options are here to have direct impact on these sustainable goals that are being put on various consumers and customers. So as we move into, okay, we've talked from the top, right? The top of the package. What about the base of the tray? Well, as we mentioned, not all plastic is bad plastic. A lot of CPET, polypropylene, those are kind of products that we would pick on. A lot of products like APET that we see in the marketplace, reusable frequently. We want to understand and share that not all plastic is bad plastic, but utilizing the most recyclable friendly products, i.e. your number 1 recycled label, that can still be optimized to ensure that we are best stewards of that product in a sustainable manner. So one of the items that has been commercially brought to the market is reducing the gap in between a tray. So typically you would see in the industry a 5 millimeter gap in between each tray. This is to allow automation of tray denesters to automatically drop trays onto conveyor lines. Great solution. However, technology has jumped what is, I would say, standard in terms of tray development. Whereas now you can get that same tray with a 1 millimeter gap. You're running on same automated equipment, doing a sustainable design like this. You're shipping less air, shipping less trucks, goods in are reduced, right? So you could have an increase of a 66% space savings. So as we look at these technologies and these options of packaging, we've had developments that have been decades in the making of switching from clamshells to top seal. We then have newer developments of companies that are taking existing plastic trays and sustainably designing them to ensure that they are using as least footprint as possible and shipping as least air as possible. So these are in the marketplace, but there is still a demand for something next. And so as we look at the tray itself, the base, that is the likely next culprit to pick on. And so within Aptar, we have a product called Halopack, which is combining all of these aspects. So it's fully gas and airtight fiber-based tray. So you can take this as a direct comparison to your CPET, polypropylene, any hermetically sealable plastic tray. We can go through the cold chain from freezer to microwave, and we also have dual ovenable use. The product itself can be printed 360 degrees. You have the ability to mark it inside and out. And this is not new. This may be new to the US marketplace, but this is in the global marketplace for over 10 years now, manufactured on 12 different countries, and really excited to bring this product to the marketplace. We have over 9 different current formats in the US, but a really strong ability to design your own tray. So this product itself, going into the details, right? What makes it special? What it is we are using as least amount of plastic as possible. As we mentioned, not all plastic is bad plastic. So this product is a single sheet of paper that is lined with a removable liner. This liner can come in various different formats and substrates depending upon the application. So if you're doing a MAP or a VSP, vacuum skin pack application, or an ovenable application, we have various different substrates to allow peelability as well as ovenability. So various different function as well as performance. This product, as I mentioned, is in the marketplace for over 10 years. And the beauty of it is highlighting one of those issues with food contamination. So as you go to your ready-to-eat products or various different other products, all food stuff is confined to touching this removable liner. Once removed, that board is 100% recyclable, uncontaminated, and able to be put back into that paper stream. So as we look to discuss a bit more about this product, this is that, using as least amount of plastic as possible, but we still are using it because we don't want to add to food waste. So this is renewable and recycled cardboard. It's 90% reduction in plastic compared to a conventional tray. It can be easy to recycle, as we mentioned, custom printing, but it's free of additives, PE coatings, adhesives. It's a globally protected product, and as we mentioned, as itself, it's 90% certified recycled cardboard, with that 10% being a removable liner. When you remove that liner, you now have 100% recyclable board. So these products are used across a variety of industries. As you can see, we have a MAP, modified atmosphere packaging capable product. So hermetically sealable paperboard tray. That same tray has ovenable applications that both microwave and conventional oven. Halopack Skin highlights our ability to handle skin packed product with an easy peel top film. And then on the bottom is highlighting the various shapes and sizes. So whether it's an octagonal 8-sided to fit in some existing tooling that you have, whether it's a 2-compartment tray, whether it's a small mini container, or we do have even clamshell options, specifically for our burger program that we started. So this is kind of the shape and size. Each of these formats can be utilized in various applications, i.e. the MAP tray can be changed the shape to the skin tray, right? So you have complete flexibility. And for us, we want to ensure that this product gets into the right consumer and understands, because there is an educational level that needs to happen. There's a lot of benefits that they can gain from moving to this type of package. One of the topics, so we touching on the tray, what is the liner? So we do have non-barrier liners, but typically we're going to be using a liner with EVOH. Yes, the addition of EVOH makes that liner non-recyclable, but it gives us the ability to extend the shelf life of the product, creating a high functional barrier, and it allows us to ensure that food waste does not become an even bigger issue. We believe that food waste is a bigger issue than having a 100% recyclable tray. So being able to have this removable liner allows us to give a direct comparison to a CPET or polypropylene tray, while consumer can also remove labels, remove banding, and incorporate all that messaging directly onto the recyclable paperboard. So as we look to the future of alternative films and alternative liner materials, that is something that we are actively testing and validating. More sustainable, more environmentally friendly packaging in terms of the liner. But right now, we don't see something that is as suitable as this product that will not have degradation in terms of food waste and shelf life. So a product, as we mentioned, various different liner types, one of them being with an EVOH film. So as you look at this, what is this good for? What is this product range used for? Grab and go convenience, your ethnic foods, ready to eat meals, meat and seafood, you name it. We typically see a rigid container being a direct replacement opportunity for Halopack. But we also understand that not every product is going to go into this. So whether it be a soup or yogurt, there are new developments that we're bringing to the forefront, but your typical deli, fresh produce, high-end meats is exactly the type of product that we see this falling into. So as we mentioned, this type of product is not new. It was originally developed in the Netherlands. And as we lead and look to what is the changing industry trends, a lot of what we find is Europe is ahead of us. And so currently 90% of disposed cardboard is recycled in the Netherlands, where only 65% of disposed plastic is recycled. So, as we look to see these trends of products in Europe, what is being recycled, what is not, what is being packaged, and how is it being handled? These are great items to look at and be able to see the trends from Europe and how it comes over to North America. And so when we're looking at this, what does that mean in terms of individual trays? And in terms of a sustainability check, what is the true sustainable benefits? So when looking at a standard plastic tray, roughly a number 3 size, you're going to be averaging about 14 grams of plastic per tray. Our equivalent plastic liner, as you can see, we have 3 different options based on the liner thickness, can range from 1.4 grams all the way to 2.5 grams. So the overall reduction of plastic can be anywhere from 82 to 92%. So as you're looking at these ESG goals and how can we make a major name in terms of benefits and plastic reduction, we have a solution that can do that without compromising the food products. And so, as we're looking at this, here's another current tray with a sleeve, talking, 24 grams of product, in the total weight of the product. Whereas you can see our 3 different types of Halopack products, the total weight of that, and then the recycled content compared to the recycled content of the plastic. So, as we mentioned, the percentage of product that we see Halopack versus plastic is being recycled more. And also consumers seem to be recycling paper more so than plastic. So again, these are just data-driven numbers that we've seen based off of our case studies throughout Europe, and also seeing the trends continue in North America. So quick to hammer home what that means in direct plastic reduction, right? Who wants to remove 17 million pounds of plastic from their supply chain? I know a few marketing and sustainability directors who would. Moving from a plastic container into a Halopack, you have this direct ability to do so. And while not everything is around plastic reduction, if you can provide a product that does not compromise, this is what we're looking to share, is that there is something in the marketplace while albeit new, it is proven, and would like to, highlight our ability to talk about it in more detail. So I do want to move over to the next slide and introduce Michael back into the equation, as he'll talk about our LCA comparison on a couple products.
Alrighty. Thank you, Patrick. I'll give you a break here from talking. LCA comparison. So again, life cycle assessment. These can be very different. So I just want to go over the kind of parameters around this life cycle assessment you're seeing right now. So again, the method was an EF 3.0 method. I'm using a database from EcoInvent version 3.8 cutoff. And we're just looking at climate change. So the kilogram of CO2 equivalents in one tray of our Halopack versus a competitor's tray of the same size. Again, this is just the tray. I know Patrick just talked a lot about getting rid of that rigid top lid and the sleeve and some other stuff, but we're actually just looking at the tray here. And this is also a cradle to gate. So this is when the tray is made and up until we would deliver it to your facility. So that is all this covers too. So I just want to go over the huge savings you'll see only in that alone. And so, yeah, you see a lot of differences here. The main difference though is, of course, PET, it's going to be a lot more plastic. So you can see that light blue bar is very large compared to the left side. Again, it's going to take a lot more CO2 to make that PET plastic and thermoform it. And so that's what you're seeing right there. And then you'll see, some increases in our gas power coal mix. Again, this is also based out of Atlanta, Georgia, which is where we're making these. And so we used those energy assessments, again, diving into each of the energy, how we were using it, where that CO2 is coming from in that. Again, LCA is ever changing. So we just want to make sure we highlight that as well. And then you'll see over on the left, a big bunch of different. Here we have a very thin liner, and then also have our cardboard paper material that we're using as the base. You can see some similars for electricity. We're using less because, again, we're not thermoforming. We're just kind of stretching that film layer onto the paper. And then we have some recovery aspects there. So the main thing, again, is 0.09 kilograms of CO2 emitted versus 0.05 kilograms. And again, this is per tray. And so if you want to do some comparative numbers, again, million annually, you can just multiply that by 1,000,000. But the overall percentage is still the same. A nice 87% increase from PET from our Halopack trays. And next, I will hand it back over to Patrick. I hope you got long enough of a break, Patrick, to talk about more Halopack and then also our special guest.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. And yes, I would like to introduce our special guest. So I'll be introducing Gary Wyatt. He's the former president of ProSeal and a executive partner of Halopack Americas. He's worked with tray sealing technology since the early 2000s and brought tray sealing technology, one of the pioneers to tray sealing technology, into the U.S. marketplace back in 2008. So with that, I will introduce and let Gary Wyatt join the conversation.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Hopefully everybody's enjoying the presentation so far. I'm actually here to talk about three specific case studies that we've learned over the years on Halopack and indeed fiber in packaging. I really want to take this introduction or the background back to 2005. The UK are actually seen as trailblazers for actually reduction in packaging and moving towards the circular recyclability and sustainability. And in 2005, the Courtaulds Agreement was made between the governments and the retailers and the food manufacturers to reduce plastic in packaging by 2030. And as with all new initiatives, I think it's important to understand that there are some low-hanging fruit. And the brilliant history that Patrick's just given us has picked on a couple of those instances of low-hanging fruit, such as removing a plastic lid and reducing 30% plastic instantly is a no-brainer. And also then the engineering that went in to reduce the amount of packaging in the body of that container. So these things have happened. And as a result of that, we are moving towards a more sustainable packaging product. But very specifically, after 2005, the first case study that I want to draw to people's attention is happened in the UK, and it's regarding your classic sandwich wedge. Previously, all sandwich wedges were presented and packaged in PET. And in 2006, a company called Rapid Action Packaging produced the first cardboard container. And this was at a trade show. And actually, for 4 days during the trade show, they packed up a cold display case, and they'd had 100 plastic wedges, the same sandwich, no money involved, 100 samples packaged in plastic, and 100 in cardboard. And every single day they did that for 4 days. All the cardboard ones had gone before, and there was 60% of the plastic ones left. So that indicated that actually fiber packaging for a ready-to-eat fresh product, actually they've got something. There was no requirement for shelf life here, and I need to make that point. But the reality is, in that initial introduction in 2006 to today's markets, we have now seen and witnessed 100% penetration from a PET container to a fiber-based container. You will not buy a sandwich in the UK that's not offered in a fiber-based packaging. And it's quite remarkable when you consider that 8.5 billion sandwiches are sold annually in the UK. So that's a 100% conversion, which I think gives a really good example of what fiber can do to a fresh product in that case. Case number 2 that we're going to identify, absolute again another trailblazer, is a retail group in the UK called Marks and Spencer's, and they had a failing product. It was chicken tenders in various different sort of recipes, but it was failing, and they were going to pull it, and they had one last gasp to try and do this because they'd set up, and it just simply wasn't selling. And what they decided to do is to put it into a Halopack container. The big difference here compared to the sandwich wedge is this product actually has 2 extra challenges to what the sandwich case had. That is the fact that it needed to hold MAP. It needed to be modified atmosphere to extend the shelf life because it needed to mimic what they were getting out of a plastic container. But it also had a demand to be reheated. And so ovenable, whether it be microwave or convection oven. Halopack, in its entirety, are able to offer everything that a plastic tray can provide in today's market. Halopack can provide it too. And as a result of that, something quite remarkable from this particular case study is that they decided also to put the price up. So they've got a failing product. So they put it into a Halopack because it costs a little bit more money, but they upped the price because they didn't want to soak on that money. And they also negotiated with Halopack a 18-month exclusivity period where they could have a chance to trial it and run it without any competition. And within 18 months, it became their biggest seller and also their most profitable seller. So from a failing product into a most profitable product, and their biggest seller was a really good example and a case study where, again, the presentation of quality fresh food can, in fact, give you all sorts of benefits because of the attraction to it with the marketing, etc. And then the final case study is right here in the USA. We're talking about a particular product. It's a 5-ounce salad tub. You've seen them all over the country. I think it's 18.6 billion tons of loose leaf salad are sold in the US. And it seemed a good vehicle because the US has particular circumstances that the UK does not have, in respect that they are very regionalized, and you've got a vast country. So they had to be shelf life sustainable. They had to be a mapped product. And of course, we know that we can do that. So we've launched in a couple of areas in the US with great success, where we're mapping a green leaf salad, whether it be romaine, etc. And already in 2024, both companies that have participated in this launch of Halopack in this particular sector have recorded that their sales are 25% up compared to what the salad tubs are selling. That is a remarkable example of what Halopack can do to the presentation of a product. But it's also the perception of the consumer that's eating a ready-to-eat salad. This is a person that's actively not going in for a fast food or a burger or etc. And the fiber look obviously sits very well with this typical consumer. So I think what we demonstrated with these 3 case studies are, number one, that it actually looks good in terms of fresh product. Number 2, it's adaptable because it can be dual ovenable, it can be mappable. And number 3, you've got some great space area there in which to advertise and actually show your product without any losses of the benefits that a whole plastic tub will give you. So whilst we've dealt with the top seal, we've dealt with the engineering of the base, and now what we're offering is the body of the tray can massively contribute to taking 90% of the plastic out of a container. So the details of all 3 of those case studies will be available as I understand it. But with that, I hope you found that interesting, and I will hand back to Patrick.
Thank you, Gary. And as we mentioned, hammering home some of the benefits and features of this product, from sustainability to reducing food waste, the wide range of applications, fitting into existing tooling as well as existing equipment, combining that with the marketing opportunities. We see this product success in Europe, and we see the trends continuing in North America. So to jump onto the key takeaways, understanding the worldwide preference for more sustainable packaging materials, right? Understanding what is the traditional role of food and packaging and how can we change in the response to what the market needs. Conversations about food waste, right? And inflation. How does that play a factor? And so there are ways in which looking at the product holistically, the demand for value added, for convenience, for transparency is there, but without the compromising of the food waste. And then being that this product is produced recycled with recycle board or in the ovenable applications using virgin fibers that can then be recycled after use, combining that with being manufactured in United States, we see a strong option for Halopack as a fiber-based solution, while also, still utilizing the benefits of the plastic to ensure that that product does not degrade. So with that, I want to thank you for attending our webinar. I know we covered a lot of information there, and I believe we will take a minute to open it up to some Q&A and look forward to hearing your questions. And if you, again, have any questions, please let us know.
Okay, gentlemen. Thank you to all 3 of you for a great presentation. And you certainly have hit on a few key needs and a few key interests of our readers and our audience members, because we do have lots of questions here. And so I'll let you guys decide who answers which one, and we'll get started. So the first question I have is, what kind of shelf life can be expected with this packaging?
Sure. Shelf life can be variable. which, as we all understand the product, the way, the process, etc. But what we find is that there would be no difference to a Halopack product in comparison to what a consumer is using in their current plastic packaging.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if we incorporate, again, like Patrick had said, the snap top versus the sealed container, and we actually move into like a matte package, we will see extended shelf life there.
Yeah. Okay. So here's another one that says, are custom designs an option?
Absolutely. It is, I would say, what Halopack made its name on. So there is custom shape and sizes that we can do, but one of the true benefits of Halopack is using an existing shape, but die cutting, printing to your complete customability, so that the upfront cost is minimal, but the uniqueness of the product is at its full maximum.
Yeah, and I just want to add the turnaround time on some of those custom packages is very short compared to like your thermoforming, because again, we're actually able to form these out of paper, and we can form them and seal them quickly and get them to the customer for product demonstrations and stuff. We do that all the time. Again, 360-degree print, so it can be fully customized.
Okay, and I'm sorry, gentlemen, we have lots of questions here. I'm going to keep going, but I do have one housekeeping matter that I forgot to say. And again, I want to remind our listeners that we would like your feedback to our webinar, and we will be asking you a survey to help us improve our programs. So again, I apologize, gentlemen, and now I'm going to keep going here because we have lots to catch up on. So the next question I have is, does this packaging hold up in freezer or frozen and refrigerated conditions?
It does, yes. So we are paper based, which obviously does not maybe scream water based in the same sentence, but excuse me, products have clay coatings that are moisture resistant. We also work with companies to ensure that the processes and the board specification that we select is suitable. So we have direct-to-consumer products that are shipped frozen and thawed. We have various products that are packed in wet environments. Think of your bacon plants and your salad plants. So collectively, it is suitable for the cold chain, but we do like to have that conversation to make sure that materials are spec'd appropriately to ensure there are no concerns.
Right. Yeah. And these coatings, again, will not change the recyclability of the board. They're very basic coatings that everybody uses every day. And again, we can customize it for ovenable versus refrigeration versus freezing versus deep freezing, direct to consumer. It is very customizable.
Okay, Michael, while I have you, one question here was just asking you if you could restate some of the highlights of your LCA life cycle assessment slide.
Okay. Yeah, sure. We can we can go back to that real quick. So yeah, again, LCA life cycle assessment. This is a cradle to gate. So we are capturing just from making the tray to delivering it to the customer. And again, we're a lighter tray, so you'll see very much less plastic is used. And then the actually energy to use and make that tray is a lot less. We're using a recycled board as well. So we have that factored in. And the big takeaway here is you have an 87.83% increase in CO2 emissions from a PET tray versus one of our Halopack trays with our film. Again, 0.05 kilograms of CO2 emission per tray to a 0.09 kilograms of CO2 emission just per tray. And again, that's only taking into account the making the tray and delivering it to the door. It doesn't include the lidding we talked about, the sleeve that you can eliminate, the food waste that can do better. There are really a lot of other things to take into effect with this, but we just wanted to highlight that, and only that is an 87% increase, but there's a lot more down the line that we can help with.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for restating some of that.
Sure.
Okay. So back to more questions here. What is the max oven time and temp the paper trays can cook?
Yeah, current rating is 350 degrees Fahrenheit for up to 2 hours in a conventional oven. All of our standard product is microwave safe, but to make it 350 in the 2 hours in the conventional oven, we do specify dual ovenable use for that product.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're always looking at the future. And so we are currently investigating air fryers because we know those are the hottest, latest things, very similar to a convection oven. So we do have that in testing as well and can recommend certain things for that.
Okay, good play on words there. Is that a hot technology? Okay, so here's another question that says, how are the film lids being applied and under what conditions? And then in parentheses, it's asking about types of adhesives and temperatures.
Yeah, so typically our product is sealed using heat sealing technology. So a lot of these consumers that would be using a PE or PET based top film, what it would require is time, temperature, and pressure to basically activate that top film to seal to the base film, or our liner in this instance. So no adhesives or additives or special technology required other than properly maintained and functioning heat sealing equipment.
Yeah, and for the people that maybe aren't familiar with heat sealing or top sealing, I want to explain how simple this technology can be as well. Again, you're very simply just heating a plastic to melt one film into the other. And so it's a very simple, the tray sealers can sometimes look like glorified panini presses. And so it is a very simple and easy to transfer technology to get you up and running quickly.
Okay, so here's kind of a related question. It says, are there coatings used on this type of Halopack packaging, and are those coatings food safe?
So it's a good question. So as we mentioned, the inside there are no coating. So anything that touches food product, there are no additives. It is a food safe, that plastic liner. On the outside of the tray, sometimes we can use some environmentally friendly clay coatings or water-based lacquers to help with resistance, but these do not degrade the recyclability content or labeling of that product. So nothing that would adversely affect food, right? But we do have some type of coatings that would allow greater moisture resistance if needed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's one that says, what can we put on our packaging in terms of recycling information if we use sustainable packaging material?
So yes, and varies, but there are some various labeling that we're going through in the middle of pre-submission and finalizing with how to recycle. We have a couple customers that have approved, and then we are, product could be FSC certified. But as Michael mentioned earlier, our accreditations and certifications are pretty extensive. So if there is any specifics that customer requires, we're happy to broaden our scope. Open up, Michael. I'm not sure if you have any others to highlight.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Like you said, we have a lot of certifications for food safety, food clearance, coating technologies. Again, we are in the active packaging realm and active materials, and so we have a a lot of knowledge around not only recyclability, but also regulatory limits and such as well. But recyclability, yeah, again, we can use pre-recycled trays or pre-recycled materials. And again, we're constantly developing new film materials to use as well. So we're hoping to get a recycle-ready film lining in as well that we could possibly use. So yeah, that is ever evolving. Like Patrick said, how to recycle, it's kind of a case-by-case basis, sadly, with them, but we will gladly help each of our customers through those challenges as well, and certifications if you so desire. But again, really using the recycled material and reducing all that plastic is easily shown without all those certifications.
Okay, so we're doing well time-wise. I've got I've got several more questions and a few from me as well. So here's one that says, is there a tray solution that's suitable for cold chain e-commerce as well as oven safe and ready after defrost?
Yes, actually, yeah. So as we mentioned, all our products can handle the cold chain. So in this instance, the uniqueness would be the dual ovenable request. But yeah, we have product that is currently frozen direct to consumer, and they actually use microwave and oven to heat up.
Yeah, and again, our trays are very similar to plastic trays, so you shouldn't see any difference with cold chain e-commerce transport there. They can be designed for rigidity. We have a lot of different designs to actually help with that as well. As you saw in the different pictures, we have 4-sided, 8-sided trays to match current manufacturing, as well as for some of those stabilities. But yeah, oven safe, frozen, freezer, microwave. Again, we're working on air fryer. We're trying to tackle any possible use of this tray. And again, it's not just food as well. We have a lot of other kind of non-food items we're looking at as well.
And now approaching 12 years globally doing this in the marketplace. So it has its experience and credibility behind it as well. But happy to share, as we mentioned, case studies on that, but testing and validation we definitely recommend for each site, right? It is new packaging. And one of the things that we do is come out and attend. It's not an extra charge or service, but it's part of what we offer is ensuring that consumers have what they need to make sure this product lands without issue.
Yeah. Okay. So a few additional questions from me here as we go. I'm curious. I love everything about this discussion and everything from a new product development standpoint. And so I'm kind of curious to hear from you guys about we think of new product development as a team sport with people in packaging and people in marketing. I think Patrick, maybe you mentioned the head of sustainability. I just kind of would be curious as over the years, as you guys have worked, who do you see kind of do you see more of R&D involved in the mix? Do you have where perhaps in the past it was just a sustainability, a packaging
Sure.
engineer on these calls. Do you have more of a voice from somebody now who has a sustainability title getting involved? And how do you see it playing out between the different functions?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it varies, to be honest. We see a lot of top-down initiatives coming about with some of these ESG requests and goals and sustainability goals. And so, Aptar is a tremendous company with a lot of existing customers. And so I see a lot of top down, but at the same token, we do have a product, new development, new messaging. It's very perfect for that. But in the same token, we have a lot of products that fit in existing tooling that is a true direct replacement to current packaging. And so there is it really can play on both angles where you could buy a craft product with limited branding, but it is paper recyclable, all those statistics right now. or do we want to develop a very bespoke custom product and change the way that they do packaging? I see that being more top down, but kind of, retailer request, hey, we just need to source something. We're seeing more and more of that, I would say, as well.
Yeah. I really enjoyed all of Gary's case studies, and I think earlier on near the beginning of the presentation, you talked about the many different categories and the types of packages that you have for different categories. And I wanted to ask, we certainly see growth in prepared foods that are being sold from an in-store deli. As a channel, you see more and more. Are you seeing more and more activity with commissaries and co-manufacturers that are supplying that category?
Absolutely. That, as well as we've had a big tick up in some school meal programs with some citywide and statewide initiatives on reduction in plastic, things, of that nature. So we definitely have our co-man and co-packer relationships that feed a lot of these, DCs, but yeah, it really varies. We have a very strong sales team, and picking on some existing relationships has been helpful. And I would say it's pretty split, whether it be a direct product that consumer is wanting or through that co-man right now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We have a lot of B2B customers. And so, you can get rid of all this 360-degree branding. You can do a very simple craft colored tray and deliver it to like a school system who's trying to be as economical as possible, trying to get better food and more food. And we can help them with that. We have very tiny sealing machinery that you can top seal that's about a foot by a foot wide. And so it takes up very little space in the commissaries or school systems that you can use for these mini containers and some of these little, hot and ready food trays that the schools can send with the students to take home. I know we've been working on that. So, it's very beneficial, not only for retail, but also for business to business and commissaries and schools.
Okay, last question, and we're running out of time here, but last question for me, just because I'm so fascinated by your topic. Has there been, of all the categories, I'm thinking of stuff that we've seen about side dishes and meals and entrees and produce and snacks. Has there been one or two categories that have really taken off with some of this packaging that's been interesting?
Yeah. Industry-wide, right? You look at the history of Halopack, your high-end meats and your ready-to-eat containers are probably the preeminent runners for this. We are actually seeing a lot in fresh produce in North America, partly to do with the shape and size and needing to be hermetically sealed. So I would say my most surprising within North America is the amount of like 5-ounce salad kits and bowls and things like that we're seeing. So that's I would say a unique industry trend that we're seeing success in. But I would be remiss to say that all of them are also every category that needs a rigid tray replacement we can kind of fit in. But that salad kind of indoor farming, value added, they use limited water, right? The messaging, it's really cohesive to that. And then we've had a lot of success. Think of your consumers that have a CPET tray that's sealed, ready meal that then goes into a box that's then branded. It goes into the freezer section. We can deliver everything on that box on that tray. Seal it and put it in. So, when you look at that total cost, it's actually very flat in terms of there is no increase to move to Halopack. We're actually removing steps in the process. So, it'll be interesting this time next year to see where that trends continue because, we've seen really explosive events on the cusp and or happening in kind of both industries right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's unfortunately that's probably all the time that we have for today. And I'm as I said, I'm tremendously excited about this topic, and I'm glad for your presentation. So to our listeners, I'll say please join me in thanking Michael Johnston and Patrick Innes for this presentation, as well as our sponsor, Aptar Food Protection. If you have any additional questions or comments, please don't hesitate to click the Email Us button on your console. And please visit preparedfoods.com/webinars for an archive of this presentation, as well as information about other upcoming events. We appreciate your time, and we hope you found this webinar to be a valuable experience. Have a great day.